This is Cold Start. So on this episode, continuation of the E39 M5 story and a new segment to the Cold Start podcast, getting out on the road, actually behind the wheel of the E39. We're taking the studio on the move, getting live reaction to driving an E39 M5. Obviously, we'll start to cover some other vehicles as well and doing some more behind the wheel responses, feedback, opinions.
We talked about for a long time doing this, the sounds of a car from inside the car, more of the whole experience. So this is going to give us that. It's such a smooth ride. It's not a sports car in its suspension, and we made sure of that when we did the work on the car.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's supposed to be that ultimate road trip cruiser. Obviously, as we start to undulate and hit a couple little bumps and stuff here, you got those little creaks that are stereotypical of older BMWs, right? It's never going to be perfectly silent when you're in the car, but
it's pretty quiet though, all things considered. I think all that refurb that the EAG guys did on the car really brought it to hey, doppelganger.
Another E39. Not an M5.
No.
But another E39 5 Series just rolled into the track.
Yeah.
We're in good company out here.
With that Nardo gray paint on it, just to let you know that it's not original. Some of the things that really blew me away when we got this car, it still has this sticker on the upper left part of the windshield. And I kind of wonder if it's always been there or if the EAG guys replaced it. With the break-in periods and running in introduction instructions, I mean, that's almost like the first thing you take off your car when you get it, but somebody thought not to, or they replaced it on purpose.
It's a good sign. It feels like someone may have paid attention to your break-in process, getting this engine up to temperature and up to speed when it was brand new. Now we have just over 80,000 miles on the odometer. So in terms of E39 M5s, I would say that's on the lower end. I feel like a lot of these cars got used and they got driven. These were driver's cars.
I looked at a lot of these cars online, and I'd say 3/4 of them at least had more mileage than this, probably more than that. So yeah, that was a big motivator for this car in particular. Driven enough, but not used up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as we let the oil temperature get to its proper operating around Sonoma Raceway, obviously we have lovely roads for the most part right now. It's just cruising roads, right? And it's a nice place to be.
Welcome to Sonoma Valley. Yeah, I think one of the things that was coolest to me when I first started learning about these cars was the tachometer has its red line, but it's dynamic. So there's little LEDs there, which as you warm up the car and the oil comes up to temp, it adds 500 RPM or so at a time in what your red line is.
Yeah, very similar, obviously, the E46 M3, which was the M3 during this generation of the E39 M5, had that similar sort of dynamic red line like you're talking about. So as the car warmed up, it would allow you to rev it out a little bit more and more. Now, the instrument cluster, one of those things that I love about the instrument cluster on this car are those gray-faced dials. It's just such a classy, stylish way to have the instrument cluster there. Really makes everything pop.
Yeah, they're really easy to read. They're white numbers on the gray background. Everything is in that really straightforward sort of German-inspired, you get what you need. There's none of a bunch of extraneous lights and information on there. You have your oil temp, you have your fuel, your mile per hour, your tach, and your water temp, and that's it. That's all the analog gauges give you. And then there's a little computer below that. There's an adjuster where you can choose whether you want to see your miles remaining, your range on this tank. There's a few trip odometers and things like that, but it's by all means pretty Spartan compared to modern cars.
Now, from this generation, from this era, I've owned a handful of BMWs, as you do when you get into BMWs. They seem to populate, and you get quite the collection.
Maybe now, that's just some people, huh, man?
Maybe it's just me. Maybe I have a problem. I'm not going to admit it. But from this generation, I did have a 7 Series. So it was the E38 chassis code. So we're in an E39 M5. It was the E38 7 Series. And so, getting into this car for the first time, I had never driven an E39 M5 until you got this car. A lot of the, vents and the center console, the onboard computer, almost identical to my E38. So I got rid of my E38, unfortunately went on to the next owner, but it's kind of cool to see some of those same sort of styling, technology, all that sort of stuff. Same sort of buttons in the center console for the climate control and everything like that.
It's familiar, it's nice they keep it in the family.
Yes.
There's a consistent look and feel from an era across similar kinds of cars. It's well designed, so they might as well use it.
And I think that these cars during the early 2000s for BMW really had a distinguished lineup, right? The E46, the M3, that did something very specific, right? That was the sports car. It was lightweight, good power delivery, raw experience.
Right.
The 7 Series, in contrast, was very much a luxury cruiser, and it really focused in on that. Now, the tagline for BMW, the ultimate driving machine, even the 7 Series, I was blown away by the handling capabilities and the handling feel. Even though it was a luxury vehicle, it still had that driver focus. It was still an enjoyable car to drive and be behind the wheel. Where in contrast, the Mercedes S-Class of that generation, that would have been a car that would have been a lot more enjoyable being in the backseat, not behind the steering wheel. Now the M5, the 5 Series, it falls in between those two spans. And I really think that this car stands alone of a good mixture between that sports car feel that you can get out of the M3, but also that luxury livability that you would get out of, a luxury sedan like a 7 Series. This is kind of that perfect middle child.
It's not that Luxo barge where your first priority is just cruise around in comfort. Some of those are so long, and maybe it's to have somebody else drive you around, the LI models or some of those S-Class cars. It's right in the middle. It's made for people who want to drive and have an experience of driving a car, but want to have a little bit more room in the car, have some back seat. Maybe they just prefer the way the lines on a sedan look, and the lines on this car are great. You look in the side view mirrors, and there's just a nice curve to the top of the door. You see that Hofmeister kink, which was so signature to these cars for so long. It's a shame they're getting rid of that.
Right.
Everything about it is its function, but it's well designed and it's luxurious. We have the center console. There is a screen. It's a single screen, but it's all hard buttons. It's not a touch screen. We are able to look at a map if you want to deal with the nav system stuff. Really, we are using it for the radio because we haven't retrofitted Bluetooth to this car yet.
Mm-hmm.
But it's set up for a car phone back in the day, some onboard computer kind of stuff. Interestingly, and to make it a complete throwback, there's this eject button in the upper right-hand corner of it. It kind of made me wonder at first, there's not really anywhere to put anything in there, so what's this eject button for? So if you press it, I think we have to press it. And the whole of this console screen moves down and tilts on a 45-degree angle toward you to reveal a cassette tape deck slot.
That seems like a lot of action and engineering with that hinged mechanism just to reveal a cassette slot.
It seems like something that's going to break if you press it too many times, honestly. Now, they're well engineered, I'm not saying that, but it's overly complicated. We don't need that for a cassette. Although it did auto-retract, which is kind of nice.
It's the concept of German engineering, right? Everything's over-engineered, over-complicated.
I like the sound of that turn signal too, right? It's an analog turn signal, that clicking sound. It's very definitive. The engagement for it is very positive. You know if you're turning it on or not. It's not that soft, squishy kind of feel.
This is the analog era, right? This is the time when each car from BMW served a specific purpose. It's not like the modern era where every single car from every manufacturer tries to do everything somewhat decent. These cars had specifics to them. Now the M5, right? First experience driving an M5, an E39 M5, it kind of seemed a little muted to me, to be honest, right? And I'm used to M3s. And I think, trying to separate what is the goal of an M3 comparative to the goal of an M5, being a little surprised of like, no, this is kind of like soft, it's quiet, it's comfortable, it's, it doesn't have that raw sensation that I'm usually used to in regards to driving M3s, but that's not the point of the M5, right? The point of the M5 is to have that power, right? To be able to have that pickup, but also have that smoothness, everyday comfortability of it.
Usability is so key. It's easily overlooked in cars, and we're enthusiasts, right? We make excuses for some of the deficiencies of cars that we like. I know I do. Too stiff suspension, kind of rough handling at low idle, at low speeds. Those are things that we give up in terms of comfort and usability to have the experience of a performance car, a sports car. This car somehow manages to get it all right, though. It's right in that sweet spot. You have the power, you have the handling, but you also have the comfort. These seats are damn comfortable, I have to say.
Yeah, for being early 2000s, this isn't a bad place to be. People think that cars from this era, that they're gonna have these interiors that are gonna be wishing you wanted more, right? I have just enough to be comfortable. Like if we decided we wanted to cruise down to LA and spend 8 hours in this car, I think I would have no problem with that. Now, you were mentioning the Bluetooth with the radio, right? That might be a little difficult to manage, not having, your tunes playing the entire time.
That's a livability thing.
And that's an easy changeable thing, right? You can update that. There's ways to be able to add kits to it. So there really is no downside of having one of these older cars other than maybe, general maintenance and stuff of that nature, but it's nothing too complicated.
There's something called Blue Bus, which is the upgrade kit that you can get for this car. And fortunately, this car has the CD changer / DVD input back in the trunk where they feed in the navigation system information, which apparently makes it a pretty easy replacement or upgrade that you can make through that system. There's not that much other work you need to do, and it gives you the benefit of Bluetooth for your audio and for your phone if you're into it.
Now, every single E39 M5 that was sold was a manual transmission. They did not offer this generation of an M5 with an automatic transmission. Thank God, right? I mean, we think about automatic transmissions from the early 2000s, slush boxes, right?
Yeah, or you had that SMG.
Which, in the E46, it was that early stages. There's benefits, there's a handful of drawbacks to it. Now, having a manual transmission in a V8 sedan, rear-wheel drive, that's just cool. Now, the feeling, right, the sensation of shifting gears, it's not gonna be as raw and notchy of an experience like you would expect out of an M3, right? I think that there is a difference in the feeling of the shifting in this car. Whether this is maybe a little bit more worn bushings or just the nature of the M5, but it's not a bad experience, right? And once again, that's what the M5 was about, is just this smooth luxury experience where shifting gears, it's not a notch. It's not you really have to find that gear. You can be slow with the shifts, and the car actually kind of likes that. It's not expecting you to, get that shift done really quick, where in comparison, driving my E90 M3, right, at 2011, with that V8 under the hood, that car you have to shift quickly or the RPMs drop too much and it's really jerky. This car, it allows you to have that time.
Those cars have very positive action with the shifters. This somehow feels just intuitive. It's easy. It's not as easy as, say, I don't know, a Honda Civic or something where you can shift with one finger and it barely feels like you're doing anything.
There's some resistance to it.
It's engaging. It's at the point where, again, it doesn't belie the nature of the car. It's fitting to that. We're having some luxury, we're having this experience of being an enthusiast, we can still row our own, we still get feel from the road, but the shifting isn't as hard, it's not that high effort. You're not in this car for high effort necessarily, right? You didn't buy this to go run around the track every single day. This is a cruiser. You want to be able to get out and cruise. I think something else I noticed when we got in the car is there is a sport mode on this car. So the button you can press that, I believe it sort of shortens the distance the throttle has to travel. That throttle actuation is tightened up. It's a little bit more responsive. It might have some other characteristic differences in the engine mapping that it uses. I noticed you turned it on right as soon as we got in.
Yeah, I did hit the sport button. In my E38, the sport button also stiffened up the suspension a little bit. I don't think that it does it in the M5 here. But yeah, so that sport button, I just like the crispness of that throttle just a little bit more. It really helps with those downshifts and things like that. For me, I want that little bit of sporty nature, more than just that everyday cruising. So yes, sport button on instantly.
And tell us about DSC. There's a button right next to it.
DSC, so dynamic stability control. So basically, if you wanted to look like Jason Statham or be the transporter and slide this thing around like we saw in so many of the commercials when this car was coming out.
Yeah, Clive Owen and all those videos, right?
Oh, absolutely. So DSC, yeah, you turn that off, you'd be able to get this thing sideways. So, I mean, it had enough power from that naturally aspirated V8 to have a little bit of fun. So
Yeah,
this car is not all seriousness. Even though it is that luxe cruiser, sport cruiser, it was able to get with it.
Well, I'll say it was rated for, what, 390 horsepower, something like that, pushing 400?
Which is plenty, right?
Yeah.
Now, that number might seem low nowadays, and the standard of horsepower is just getting astronomical of being a high horsepower car. But for something like this, it's enough. It gives you that experience.
Yeah, there's nothing extraneous about this car. I really appreciate that. You know, you have what you need, and that's what's there. And the controls at your fingertips are the ones that you need. The climate control, super easy to use. You want to dial in the radio, you can do that. If you're interested in turning the wipers on and off or getting into some particular setting, you can do that. It's just straightforward. You don't have to go futz around or look at the gauges to do it even. You just can find it by feel.
All right, we got it straight away.
All right, we got to take it.
Just got such a great pull to it, right? Naturally aspirated, it's so linear. I mean, you get up to speed, that's a lot more than I thought we were going to be doing. You get up to speed
I only saw
pretty
60,
quickly.
I don't know what you're talking about.
We're within the legal limit. And now we're getting up to a twisty section here. We're looking at some cows here in wine country. But even carrying some speed, this is a heavier car, right? It's not a lightweight vehicle. It's not, you know, new M5 heavy. But even in the twisty section here, I'm feeling pretty confident with the front end. There's a little bit of weight transfer, a little bit of roll, right? We're still on stock suspension, but this thing dances pretty well through the corners. It's very manageable.
And I gotta say, it's comfortable as a passenger too. There's one thing about the feeling that you get in a car when you're driving, because you're doing the controlling. But there's another thing to be said for how it feels to ride around in this car. And again, there are 3 other seats that are not the driver's seat in the car. And it's comfortable. I mean, you're cutting through these turns, you're getting on it. I'm not sliding around or getting an uncomfortable feel from the car at all. It's quite nice.
The platform feels super stable. And on all 4 corners, it feels like every single one of the tires is working as intended as you get into those corners. It feels like it's basing itself and planning itself as it should, right? I don't think that there's anything overly complicated with the suspension geometry and setup of the vehicle. It's doing everything as it should.
Yeah, we pull in here to Ernie's Tin Bar here in Sonoma, kind of a local landmark. Just out on our ride, getting a feel for the car, looking at the beautiful scenery. It just seems somehow perfect for this.
Now, should we do a driver change? So I was behind the wheel first, cruise it over here to Ernie's Tin Bar, iconic landmark here on Lakeville Highway. Awesome place to check out.
Yeah,
should we switch?
Let's go ahead and switch. Getting in. Obviously my...
The doors have such a good thump to them. I mean, like, older BMWs just have such a great noise when you close the doors. Everything just seems so much more solid.
Yeah, for sure.
then.
In fact, it makes me want to do it again. Yeah, you know your door's closed. It feels good. So we're just going to head back the way we came. Let me note the manual handbrake that I need to release. Something that I can't believe they took out of cars. Just to put this little electronic switch in there for your emergency brake. I think that's a travesty. All right, well, let's get back on the road. Visibility in this car is great too. The greenhouse, if you will, you can just see everything. You can see from every angle. If you turn your head in the car, there's visibility. If you look out your side view mirrors, you can get a good read on what's around you. All around, I think this car is just so well put together, and it was with the driver in mind and giving you all the functionality that you need, and a great performing car too.
It's back when the ultimate driving machine actually meant something for BMW. I mean, we can go back to the conversation we had of like where BMW's at now, but it's just very apparent. Getting behind the wheel of an older BMW, these were cars that were meant to be driven, and they're fun to drive. And it isn't necessarily the fastest thing on the road, but there's something about the experience that just makes it more enjoyable than other cars.
Yeah, and it's no slouch. I mean, if I look around, I don't see any other cars around me that would beat us in a straight line. And probably not around corners either. So it's not as if you're in a slow car. It's
Right.
just that the upper bound of how fast cars have gotten is just sort of out of control these days. So this car cruises around comfortably at low RPM, and if you want to push it a little bit, now that our oil is up to temp, our red line is, I guess the orange line right before the red line is about 6,500 RPM, so you could really let the thing sing a little bit. I'd be able to if it wasn't for this RAV4 or whatever's in front of us, but we got to be patient, enjoy the ride. The dash is incredibly clean in this car. I mean, they must have done an amazing restoration or refurb process on this thing. It looks like a new car.
No, really nice on the interior.
And back to that gear shifter, it's just so easy to get where you want to be. There's no hunting around for gears, trying to figure out, am I going to do a money shift down from 5 to 2? No. I know where I am. I know where I'm going. It's just all put together. Again, that sort of precision that you would expect from a German car, especially of this era.
I really like the height of the shifter too. Like in certain race cars, especially manual transmission race cars, they have those really long shift knobs.
Right.
They almost look comical of how long they are. This one obviously is not that, but it's also not one of those shifters that's like really close to the boot.
Yeah.
It's got a good medium feel. It's close to the hand from the steering wheel. Like you saying, you have a really good sensation of where your hand is, where it's going, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's only a couple of cars that'd say the placement of that shifter is better than in this car. It just, you take your hand off the wheel and it's right where it should be, right where you expect it to be. You do your business and you get back at it. I think another thing about this car, just ride quality. We were talking about that. It's all about the system that you use to make the ride a certain way, right? It starts with the tires. The tires on this car aren't just some all-season boring-ass tire. They've got some grip. They have a little bit of flex, but not too much. They're a sporty feeling tire, especially for a sedan. And then the suspension. We're on the stock suspension in this car, the M Sport suspension, I guess it was called.
Mm-hmm.
And we went through a lot of lengths to get that back on this car. We wanted to make sure we had that sort of quality of the ride. We're going to get back on a straightaway here too, so I'll pause for a second while we hear that. Sounds so good and feels so good. You hear that V8. Again, that V8 was so unexpected in a lot of ways. Not just because it was this car, but because of the history of BMW and that inline six that everybody knows. Here they come along with this revving, muscly even sounding V8 in the car, and it's not overdone. It's just right.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, like talking about, so this has the S62 is the nomenclature for the V8 and the E39, and then of course their next V8 for an M car was the S65 for the E90, which I own one of those. So it's kind of fun to compare the two natures of the engines of the S62 versus the S65. And like getting on it, right, you have that smooth nature from the S62, but once again, it's kind of subtle. It's not really in your face. When you drive an E90, and when I drove an E90 for the first time, I was so surprised of how loud the intake noise was on the S65 engine. Now the S65 also has independent throttle bodies, so it really gives you that insane intake noise, and it has that big plenum on the top of the hood, but that's also the contrast of M3 versus M5. The M5's not supposed to be in your face. This is subtle performance.
Going over these like hills and undulations, little bumps in the pavement, it's so smooth, right? It's not Cadillac smooth where you just jam over a speed bump and you don't even know you hit it. But it sort of cushions you in just the right way, and there's enough response, enough in the springs to get you back to where you want to be, to feel that in a more sporty way. It's just so well done.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the suspension a little bit more because exactly what you're saying, it feels really compliant. Like, this is nice. It's absorbing the bumps. This is brand new shocks on this car. So this is like exactly how this car would have been in the early 2000s. And same thing, when we get in those corners, initially you do feel a little bit of a roll of the vehicle. That's just going to be its nature of having a more compliant suspension. However, when you start to push the car harder, asking more on that initial turn in, that sort of supple nature of the suspension kind of goes away. So that lateral transfer of the vehicle, there still is that dynamic, stiff, right? Stiff compliance, which gives you that sporty feel and confidence in the corners. But then, yeah, once again on these straightaways here, it's not beating you up. And that is the beauty of the M5. And that's what the M5 has always tried to do from its inception. with the E28 all the way up until, I guess, the modern yacht of the latest M5. They've always tried to have that duality of it's comfortable on a day-to-day when you got to go to and from, but then once you start to push the vehicle, it responds. It likes that.
It's well designed as a system. I can't tell you off the top of my head the spring rates or how the shocks are exactly engineered, but they work exactly the way they should, just to your point. When you're wanting to cruise kind of slowly and around, there's a little float, there's a little roll, but not too much to be annoying by any means. It's just kind of a product of the era and the kind of car it is. And when you want to get on it and you push the car, you get where you're going, and it'll help you. It'll hug the road, it'll take you where you need to be.
I've been looking around the interior. We're coming up to a stoplight here, so a little chance to kind of move those eyes around. The materials are nice, right?
Yeah.
Like you were talking about, this dashboard is held up so well. You look up above your head and you have this lovely Alcantara headliner. I mean, the materials seem quality. And then you have this awesome brushed aluminum style trim. So obviously you could have gotten the wood trim. I'm glad you didn't. This looks a little bit sportier.
The wood's a little era specific. Certain kinds of cars maybe look right with the wood rather, but I think, yeah, the aluminum in this car is exactly right. Oh, and let's talk about the steering wheel. You have the very cool stitching that's iconic with the M line in cars, and it's on the inside of the steering wheel in a place that you might not even know to look, but again, it's functional. When you're holding the wheel the proper way, which all of us who know how to drive a car do, you feel that stitching. It gives you grip. It lets you hold the wheel. There's these nice little indents where your thumbs go right over the between 9 and 10 and 2 and 3 o'clock positions. It feels right. The dimensions of the wheel are good. It's not tiny. It's not a sports car kind of small kind of a wheel, but it's not a Luxo barge like we were talking about earlier. It's everything in this car seems so well put together.
BMW for a while always had like thick steering wheels. Now, I have large hands and I do enjoy a thicker steering wheel. That way my fingers aren't touching themselves as I wrap my hands around the wheel. So I really enjoy it. And the E46 was the same way, as well as the E90 E9X M3, similar sort of thing, has that nice thick steering wheel.
Yeah, it feels really good in your hand. There's a good amount of resistance in turning. It doesn't feel like it's overly boosted steering. You know, those kind of sedans where you could steer with two fingers, just kind of around and around and around like you're turning a ship's wheel or something like that. No, it really comes off as this is the steering that you would expect from a sportier car. And it's appreciated. It really helps put the whole package together, right? That idea that you're in this car, it is a luxury experience all the way, but it's sporty, and you never forget that.
And talking about that stitching on the inside of the steering wheel, like you're saying, if you don't know to look there, you may not even notice it. And that goes back to this whole sort of ethos of M cars back in the day, which was subtle performance. There's nothing in this interior that's screaming at me that I'm in an M car, right?
There's hardly even a M badge anywhere. If you look on the steering wheel, on the bottom spoke, really little, there's the M logo. But that's the only one I see in this entire car, just looking around.
Top of the shift knob, instrument cluster, but I mean, it's not plastered everywhere. Like the new M5, I've seen the interior where the whole trim lights up and it's all in the M colors and stuff like that.
Kind of garish.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's like back in the day, it was kind of, hey, I drive an M, but I'm not going to put that in your face.
Again, quiet performance and luxury, and you're not trying to be super flashy. After all, the original ones of these cars, right, the E28, they only came in black. That's not the color you get if you're trying to impress people or show off what you have. You know, you don't get the bright red one or whatever it is. Sure, that was an available option in this particular era of car, the E39.
And it's funny that you mentioned the colors because the color palettes have changed over time with M cars as well. Like, I feel like the G class, so like the G80 chassis M3, all the ones that you see are just these like super extreme colors,
Wild
metallic
colors.
paints, like really in your face, loud.
That-
Back in the day, it didn't used to be that way. You had like 3 or 4 options of different shades of silver and gray on M3s and M5s. You just don't see that anymore. And
No.
that the attitude of M has really changed in what it represents within BMW.
BMW really does those sort of muted colors well. The variations of gray and silver and blacks that they have offered. There's that carbon black, which has just a hint of a blue tinge to it if you see it in the right light. But if you didn't, it just looks like a black car to you. I had an E93, which is the E92 variant, in a black sapphire metallic. Again, that a different kind of blue than the carbon black, just a hint under it. I didn't even know when I first got the car. They said they called it sapphire. You had to see it under the right lighting to even get that effect at all.
Right.
So it's subtlety, right? It's the thing that brings a feeling of luxury. Luxury is not hitting you over the head and garish colors and all that kind of stuff, the way things have become. I mean, you even see Bentleys and Rolls Royces on the road these days that are bright metallic purple and big metallic flake in them and things like that. They're just trying to, impress versus give you an experience that feels sort of suitable for what it is that it's supposed to represent.
Exactly. I mean, I'm also biased because my E90 is a Silverstone example with palladium interior, which is basically silver on silver, interestingly enough.
It looks good. And again, from that era.
It's classy. It's a classy color.
Yeah, I think around the 2000s into the early 2010s, that silver color you'd see it a lot, but there was a big difference between sort of the flat silver you'd see on the Toyota Camry and that Silverstone silver that you've got on yours.
Right, which is it's not as good. I will admit it's not as good as Mercedes silver. For whatever reason, Mercedes always nails their gorgeous, deep metallic silvers, which is so iconic to the brand, right? Even their major marquee cars like the CLK GTR and stuff like that, they were majorly in silver. That was
Silver
always
arrows, right? That's what they're about. And they really did that well. There's this color, I think it's called iridium metallic silver or something like that. It's kind of a flat silver.
Oh, yeah.
It harkens back to when Mercedes used to actually enamel bake the paint on the cars. It wasn't just a painting process like we're used to. And it was extremely durable. You see some of those 70s and 80s era sedans, those Mercedes that are super iconic, with that paint, and it still looks okay.
Yeah. So we're on our way back to Sonoma Raceway. Now, we've talked about a lot of great points of the E39 M5, some cool stuff. Is there any drawbacks, right? We can't say everything's amazing.
Yeah, well, I guess
we can get on a little bit before.
We have some space here. We're trying to get onto that. Don't mistake it for a two-door sports car. It's not that. But I don't think that's a drawback. That's sort of, as advertised, part of the package.
Totally. It's not going to feel nimble, right? But that's what I loved about BMW in that time frame. They didn't try to make something act like something that it isn't.
That's right.
The E46 was the car that was going to dance itself through corners and feel lightweight and tossable. This car, you can still hustle, but it's just not going to feel that.
Yeah, I'd say you are carrying that weight, and I'm used to driving two-door cars much more than four-door. I'd say the brakes on them, they are a little bit of their era. It's not a mushy pedal, but you're not getting that immediate bite that you get out of more modern braking systems. Maybe a larger rotor, more pistons in your calipers, maybe one of those carbon ceramic type setups where the braking power is insane. I think, that's something that if you had to go back and maybe make some upgrades on the car, that'd be worth considering, right? Getting a bit of a grippier brake system.
Yeah, especially as modern cars have gotten better and better, it might be a good insurance to have.
A lot of people do the braided stainless brake lines as a way to sort of, I guess, increase or keep more consistent pressure through the brake fluid moving through the system. That seems like something that's a fairly minor upgrade that could give you a lot of benefit. I remember doing that on another car, on a Porsche 993, where it made an unbelievable difference. I wasn't even expecting it to really be palpable, like you would really maybe barely even notice, but it really improved the performance and the feeling of the brake system so much. So that's something I'd consider doing to this car.
Yeah, funny enough, for my birthday, my brother just got me braided brake lines for my E90.
Whoa.
And so I'll be interested to see the difference before and after of the stock brake lines on there. Still stock, calipers, rotors, pads, all that stuff, but just adding that extra little bit to see how it changes the brake feel.
That's a nice touch. Hey, shout outs to Scherf. Nicely done.
Yeah, thanks, Scherf. That was a great birthday gift.
Pretty good.
All right, we got a little bit of a straightaway.
Let's get on it.
It just doesn't stop pulling.
It gets you to pretty antisocial levels very quickly, I have to say. And it's impressive. It just has that linearity that you want from your naturally aspirated car. It pulls and pulls and pulls.
And with no drama.
Nothing at all.
Smooth.
There's not a hiccup along the line. And this is a 22, 23-year-old car we're driving around in. It's damn impressive.
Now, if it was me, some things that I would add. I would want some more noise out of the situation, maybe a different intake, get a little bit more of that intake noise out of the front end, but also a little bit more noise out of the rear end as well. So I think an exhaust would be an added benefit. Nothing crazy, right? I'm not talking about blow your eardrums off and piss off your neighbors, just something to bring out that nature, that natural sound that this motor has.
Yeah, there's a couple of good options out there. That's one thing about a car that's not completely up to date, is the aftermarket for the car. You know, you might wind up with 2 or 3 reasonable options for what you could do with a updated exhaust, for example. But they'll be good. They're the ones that have stood the test of time or that have been developed sort of with the knowledge of the car. Yeah, I think you've convinced me. I think the sound is something that's maybe a little number than I'd like. It's part of the luxury experience, you know. It's good sound deadening in this car. When the windows are closed, you don't hear much of what's going on outside. And it'd be nice to get a little bit more grunt, a little more grumble from the car and from its V8 and let it sing a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, like, when you're short shifting it, sport mode's off, all that sort of stuff, like, it stays pretty quiet.
All right, we're coming back up here to our home away from home, favorite racetrack, Sonoma Raceway. Look at that high rev and downshift just to get it happen.
Yeah, all in all, first E39 M5 experience for me when you first picked this car up. Yeah, it's just a little bit softer than I thought it was going to be, but still a pretty phenomenal car, right? I don't think that the engine disappointed by any means. Everything's been super fun. It's a great car. I would just turn things up a little bit on the volume knob.
Yeah, I agree with that wholly.
Well, Todd, thanks for the ride. I think I appreciated the passenger seat just as much as the driver's seat. Obviously,
say,
German luxury over here.
It's a good ride. It's a good, comfortable experience. I've really come to enjoy this, and it's nice being driven around once in a while, too. So thanks for that, Sylas. I appreciate it. And by the way, he's a pretty capable guy behind the wheel, so maybe we'll have to go out and do some of that dynamic driving next time out and see what that feels like.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this was a fun segment of getting behind the wheel and out on the road. So we should do it with some other cars, right? Giving a little bit more of our input, doing some automotive journalism almost. But we should find some better roads. Let's get out towards the coast here in Sonoma County and Marin County. We have some awesome driving roads. It'd be great to take the podcast on the road once again, get something maybe with a little bit louder exhaust. That way some of the podcast is just car noise.
If you like hearing what you were talking about right now, and there's a kind of car you want us to go out in and try to find, or a road that you think is the best place to go drive, we can share that experience with you. Just give us that feedback and we'll make it happen. It's good times. So hey, thanks, Sylas.
Thanks, Todd. And thanks for listening.
This has been Cold Start.
On the road.
Handbrake, oh so good.